Social media and websites might show you where you want to stay. Sales, they tell you when to book. But they rarely tell you where you actually are. I'm Megan, and yes, I talk about Sandals and Beaches resorts. The weekly sales, the promos worth booking, and the ones you can skip. Room categories, upgrades, insider tips, and how to actually get the best value for your vacation. But a resort doesn't exist in a vacuum. It sits on an island with a story, shaped by history, culture, food, people, and moments you'll never find on a booking page. On Islands Uncovered, we go beyond the resort gates. We talk about the islands and the people that Sandals and Beaches call home. The legends, the flavors, the unexpected stories hiding just beneath the surface. Because the best trips aren't just well priced, they're well understood. This is where smart booking meets storytelling. This is where vacations feel more meaningful. This is Islands Uncovered. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Islands Uncovered. My name is Megan. I am the host of Islands Uncovered and the owner of Dare to Dream Travel, a travel agency that specifically books Sandals and Beaches vacations. Today's episode is the Monday edition where we venture off resort and try to learn a little bit more about the islands that Sandals and Beaches call home. So today, our story takes us back to Jamaica. And as you know, the Winter Olympics are going on right now. I already covered the very popular and famous Jamaican bobsled team a few weeks ago. So if you want to hear that story, please go back and listen to that episode. But I wanted to dig in to see if there were any interesting stories about other athletes in the Caribbean that made it specifically into the Winter Olympics. There's, of course, lots of Summer Olympic athletes, and I will hopefully have a chance to cover all of those individuals in future episodes. But today we're going to dig into somebody that you may not have heard about ever or know much about, and his name is Benjamin Alexander. And he was Jamaica's first ever Olympic Alpine skier. And the crazy part about his story is that he did not even learn to ski until he was 32 years old. People, you can do anything. All right, so let's dig into Benjamin Alexander's story. So he was actually born in England. His father was from Jamaica, moved when he was little to England, and grew up there, and his mother was from the UK. So he grew up going to school in England. And while he was growing up, he was not skiing at all. Obviously, I said that he didn't learn to ski until he was 32. He was actually pretty famous for being an international DJ. He performed at a bunch of major events around the world. He was in New York, Ibiza. Those are big, big DJ club places. And I believe he even DJ'd at Burning Man. So very popular, very successful DJ career. So how did he get into skiing? So in 2016, he was invited to DJ a Helsinki trip in a very remote mountain range in British Columbia. And he almost didn't go because he's like, I don't ski. I'd rather go somewhere warm. But he went, he saw the mountains, he talked to the other people that were skiing, and he gave him this idea that, hey, I want to give this a try. And I commend that because I tried skiing and I got on that moving walkway thing to get up the hill. And when it ended, I fell into the snow and literally could not get up. Like literally could not get up. And I consider myself a fairly athletic person. I played sports, I work out. I could not get out of the snow. So kudos to him for giving this a try, sticking with it. He went back and he tried it and he enjoyed it. He did not really have any dreams of qualifying for the British, ski team of elite athletes who have been training since they were little. But in 2018, he did go to the Winter Olympics, and he looked around and he noticed that there were only 3 athletes in the Winter Olympics from Jamaica, competing for Jamaica. And they were competing in the bobsled and the skeleton. So he started thinking to himself and, running the numbers. And he thought that maybe it was possible to make the Jamaican ski team, or since there is no team, really create one. If there's nobody doing it, thinking to himself, what do I need to do to qualify and create a team? I'm not competing against anybody else to make the team. I'm just competing against myself. So he settled into this idea, and his first step was he met with the former U.S. national ski team athlete, Gordon Gray, and he asked Gray, if you can take a few ski runs with me down this mountain and just offer me some tips, that would be great. And they interviewed Gray, and he said that Benjamin was just fearless. Like, that was the first thing he noticed when he started going down the hill. He said that he had no idea what he was doing. He had no technique. It was horrible. But Gray was like, I can teach technique. I cannot teach somebody to throw themselves down the hill at such a crazy speed and have no fear. So half the battle right there. I can train him with the technique. So what they had to do from here, besides training and getting better, so you don't, embarrass yourself, is there's a thing called the International Ski Federation, and you need to compete and accumulate a certain number of points to be able to qualify for the Olympics. So you can't just create a ski team and say, oh, I represent Jamaica and I'm going to go because I'm the only one, so I get to go. It's like, no, you have to qualify in other races, even if it's just you. So another thing he had to do was he had to achieve his Jamaican citizenship because he was born in the UK. His father was from Jamaica, but he was never living in Jamaica. So this was actually a pretty simple process to formalize that because he did have Jamaican descent. So that was no problem, but it was another step in the process that he had to do. And I feel like it shows the commitment you have if you're doing all this to go into the Olympics. Like, this isn't an afterthought. You are now dedicating a big chunk of your life to do this. Another thing he did is he contacted Dudley Stokes, which, if you listen to my episode about the Jamaican bobsled team, he was the pilot for that bobsled team. And they set up weekly calls to talk about like the psychology of this and navigating what the Olympics means and how to go about, balancing, the training in your life and what to expect. So he really never had a coach. Anytime that he went to one of these races to try to get points to qualify, there are always pre-race coach meetings, and he just went for himself because he didn't have a coach. So he went to the pre-race meetings. He definitely was much older than a lot of the other skiers too, which, being in your early 30s, early 30s, mid 30s, I don't consider that old, but he was older than the people that he was competing against. And he didn't have sponsors, so he spent a lot of his own money, and I think they said he spent like about $60,000. So before he went to the Olympics too, he did go to Jamaica. We talked about he got his citizenship there, but he also went to the country. He drove around. He had done some interviews there before, and because of that, a lot of people recognized him, and he said that they gave him a lot of encouragement. They said how proud they were of him, and he said that Jamaicans are just incredibly proud of the Olympics. And so they were in turn very proud of him and everything that he was doing to bring eyes to the country as well. So let's talk a little bit more about that point system so you can understand how that works, because there was a little bit of controversy with how Benjamin Alexander qualified. And to be clear, there was no cheating or anything like that. He got in legitly, but it just called out a few things about the process. So Like I said, there's this point system that the Olympics uses, and it's called the International Ski Federation, known as FIS points. And the lower your points, the stronger your rankings. So, nations without any sort of established winter programs, you can still qualify with basic quota spots, but your athletes still have to meet certain minimum standards. So, Benjamin went and he earned his points racing in small international competitions. He didn't go to the huge ones where all the big names were going. He went to the smaller ones, and you can still get your points and qualify by doing this. And some of the ski insiders, they argued that certain of these small events that are often hosted in Europe, but are organized by more of the underdeveloping ski nations, they were allowing athletes from non-traditional countries just a more accessible path to accumulate points. So that implies that the system might be a little easier to navigate if you represent a country that doesn't have a deep winter sports roster. So what these critics are really doing is just questioning the system itself. They're not saying that he did anything wrong. They were just kind of questioning the system, especially when you're comparing to athletes going through ultra competitive national teams like in Switzerland or something. The pathway going through these smaller competitions when you're the only one to be able to accumulate these points could be seen as easier. So while there were critics, I mean, there's other people, and I think myself included, they just saw that he used what opportunities he had and still followed the rules to get to where he needed to be. The Olympics wants smaller nations to compete. That's like the spirit of the Olympics. You can't just have the nations with more money and bigger programs competing against each other. I don't know. That's not fun. And I think that he went through this fairly. And if the Winter Olympics didn't allow this to happen, then, like I said, it would just be dominated by a handful of Alpine countries who just dominate in, skiing and snowboarding and all the other ski, snow type of events. And another thing that I kind of touched on is if you are training to ski, that costs a ton of money. Skiing is not cheap. The equipment is not cheap. Going to a ski hill is not cheap. It costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get the equipment and the coaching and the race entries and the travel. And Benjamin, he just self-funded his pursuit. He didn't come through a national ski academy like a lot of Olympians who start off when they're little and, build their life around it. He got through the system maybe in a more unconventional way, but there wasn't anything unfair about it. So he accumulates his points. He gets to the 2022 Winter Olympics, and it is the most brutal Winter Olympics in a long time. Heavy wind, blowing snow. It said that this was the first time that snow actually was falling during an alpine ski race at that year's Olympics, and the weather conditions caused the second run to be postponed by an hour and 15 minutes. So there's two runs. Alexander finishes 54th after his first run. And of that group, there were 35 people who didn't finish due to getting hurt or saying they were not going to do the run or whatever that may be. So he did it. I mean, that was his goal. He got from the top to the bottom in one piece. And then his second run, after they had waited for the snow to clear, 6 of those runners were unable to finish that run, and he completed his second run. So Benjamin Alexander did that day what some other people who were at that same event could not do. He finished the race. I mean, that was what he wanted to do. He never went into the Olympics thinking that he had a likely chance of medaling. Sure, he's going to do his best, but realistically, his goal was to represent Jamaica and to finish the race. And he completed both runs. He finished 46th overall. And for him, finishing that race was the victory. So even watching the Olympics today, I think you see that skiing, especially alpine racing, is one of the least diverse sports in the Winter Olympics. It's like we talked about, it's expensive. It's limited based on your geography. Certainly where I am, we don't have huge mountains that we can just go to and practice. And so it makes for a very specific group of people who are able to represent in the Olympics. And Benjamin Alexander did exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to represent Jamaica, where his father was born. He wanted to show kids that don't grow up near snow mountains that they are allowed to dream big and shoot for the stars. And, the winter sports are not reserved for people in elite clubs or certain countries. The Winter Olympics are for everybody. So, yeah, I thought that was so interesting. I looked up to see what Benjamin Alexander was doing today, and it looks like he's still doing some skiing, not competing in the Olympics, but he is available for more motivational speaking engagements, which I think being a DJ, he most definitely has good public speaking skills. And then this experience right here just shows how dedicated of a person, how ambitious, and would be a very interesting speaker to have or to go listen to if you ever have the opportunity to do so. Thank you again so much for listening to Islands Uncovered, the off resort edition. I'll be back again on Wednesday where we'll dig into the sandal sales report. Every week we dive into the new 777 sales, the promos, the deals. So come back on Wednesday. Please follow our podcast wherever you listen so that you can be sure to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. We're going to have more fun stories from all around the Caribbean, and I can't wait to share them with you. And of course, if you need help booking your next sandals or beaches vacation, just reach out. My services are always free, and I will do my best to help you plan an amazing vacation, both on and off resort. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye, everybody.